What are you having trouble with, Splice?
Just YouTube. It's just taking forever to let us go live.
Oh, to go live. Got it.
Says we're live now. Yep, there we go. Okay. Kicked in. All right. Time to send out the alerts.
Oh, gotta go. My YouTube show's on. Oh, wait.
Wait.
Hey, YouTube is live. Okay, I actually sound too loud.
I heard everyone just fine with volume.
I was
Sec, my chat's getting all buggy.
louder than everyone else there.
Except for Splice. Splice was a little lower, but I don't know if that's because
Okay, how about that?
crouched behind his
So are we really it tonight?
Well, Breakfast is here, but
five
he's
of
not
us.
saying anything.
It's because he spilled water and is probably cleaning it up.
Okay, that was a little too quiet.
Best of luck,
Yeah.
Goldilocks.
I don't know that I have a lot to add to this conversation.
I mean, this is 5 people's a lot.
Okay, sorry, I'm just sound testing still.
Wait,
We've got
See-
people in chat who can give feedback.
with the fact that Mithril's saying, Splice, can you talk? Not encouraging.
He says, "Okay, you're showing up," but you hadn't been saying anything.
All I know is I was just so much louder than the rest of you, so I'm hoping I'm okay now.
Don't think anyone else can.
So for the people in chat, how many of y'all remember Tiffany?
The singer?
Yes.
I think she actually, it was long after her heyday, but I think she actually performed at BYU my freshman year.
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, she's just like it was her and Debbie Gibson were supposed to be the ones that were supposed to be opposites. She had that one song, I Think We're Alone Now.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I kind of put her in the
Can
Cyndi
you guys
Lauper
hear them
crowd.
now?
Testing.
I mean, maybe. I mean, Cyndi Lauper was kind of out there, though.
Okay, that's much better.
Cyndi Lauper
Perfect.
was much on her own area, because I mean, she's so unusual.
Okay, good. Or throw a pillow. All right. Then if that's the case, I think we're ready. I'll just need to, let's go live on, or not go live, put the announcement out on. There we go. All right. Let's give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Wait, you guys can only hear me now? That doesn't make any sense.
Did.
You broke it.
I think
What
I
about-
shorted my mouse.
Oh no.
That's not
No.
good.
Mouse. Be better.
I hope not. I really like this mouse, although it's putting on 9 years now, so I should probably get a new one.
What kind of mouse is it?
G700S. Logitech.
Wired or
It's technically wireless, but I have never used it as wireless.
Kevin, can you hear them now?
We're back.
I may have a wired one around here. that I can maybe
Okay.
send.
Well,
your way.
I'm hearing you guys now on Echo, so I think we're good.
Oh,
I don't know.
wait.
I'll go through my mouse stash. I always keep like old gaming mouses just in case.
Oh, I have old mice I can fall back on if I have to, but it's starting to respond again, so it may not be dead.
Hooray!
Might put it just to be safe. Put it in like some rice or something. Some dry
Uh,
rice.
And
If I-
hearing the whole
Hugh-
much on delay for sound check is so trippy.
Right?
Okay, as long as they can be heard. All right, I'm gonna get us started then. I was a young lad, and my dad had brought a game into the household, a game that I told people about last week that my mom was not pleased with. It was Doom 2. Don't focus on the fact that I'm showing Doom 1 footage. I had never seen Doom 1 played. I had never seen anything like Doom on anything. And it just looked so much better and fast-paced and realistic than any other game I had ever seen, that I knew something had changed when this game had entered our home. This is episode 33, I think we overleveled, and we're talking about games that basically just were way ahead of their time. And for me, that was Doom. What Doom did to simulate a 3D graphical world on technology that should not have been able to do it is just next level. How's it
I'm
going?
judging you for showing Doom 1 footage when you're talking about Doom 2.
No, Doom 1 was the one that
Got him.
actually did it. It's just I hadn't seen it till Doom 2.
I'm sorry,
I was late
judgment has
to the
been
train.
passed. It's too late.
Clickety clack, clickety
I can
clack.
tell you
Who is
that-
clickety clacking?
It's
I think
mechanical. It's
that's
got to be
breakfast.
breakfast.
Yep.
But no.
Well, I can tell you that the Doom franchise in general was the first-person shooter I ever played.
Well, I mean, to the point that literally there wasn't a term for first-person shooter. People just called
Yeah.
first-person shooters for a long time Doom-likes.
See, and I always call them Wolfenstein style.
Well,
No, you know what? That's right. But you know,
tomato though, man. That's both id Software, same programming technique.
You say it's saying something came from the same company, so it's the same game is ridiculous.
No. I'm not saying it's the same game, but I'm saying like them being ahead of their time. My point is, id Software was ahead of their time, and so it's like pointing
That
to
was-
one game over the other that are like, well, they were doing,
It's just the
Yes.
issue. Everything had to be straight angles with Wolfenstein, and everything was on the same level.
Yeah.
Now,
Mhm.
everything was technically on the same level with Doom, but they found some very creative ways to. What is going on breakfast side?
I don't know.
But it's just this game. I mean, to the point that there's still a Doom mods coming out to this day.
Oh, well, the reason for that is because they released the source code.
Well, yes, but it's also
Well, and-
there's enough there's enough space in the game design to keep coming up with new stuff.
Well, and Doom is the very first game I remember even seeing mods for, because I remember
Exactly. I was going to bring that up.
I remember it was possible to have all the enemies be Barney, as in Purple Dinosaur.
I remember that there was like a bunch. It was the first game that I can remember where you could go onto BBSs. Yeah, I'm dating myself. I went on BBSs, and you could download like fan-made levels and install it into your game and play whatever they've done. So, I mean, it's the first game I remember like having any kind of mod for, level mods,
Mm-hmm.
bad guy mods, like, somebody souping up the bad guys to hell level, no matter what you did. I want to even say, like, some people even got real creative and came up with their own, like, bad guys they would throw into their personalized level.
There's a very specific mod that I want to highlight here.
Oh? REO?
Oh gosh.
They modded Isabel to be a partner in the game.
Of course they did.
Rip and
Of course they did.
tear.
The best part is she literally asks, like, after you've killed like a bunch of people, she'll ask for a fist bump.
I mean, like, you know,
And yes, you can pet the dog.
awesome. But it was ahead of its time in so many ways. It was like the first time. It was a lot of firsts. Like you can just say the Doom franchise was like modding. You know, Wolfenstein was probably a first person shooter, but I'd only seen people play Wolfenstein. It was my the first one that I had like access to all the time. Because at that point it was like Mario and Zelda and stuff like that. You know, I think it might have been the first game I had ever tried to mod and failed. I broke it.
No, it's easy to do that.
As
Yes,
was your
it is.
child as a young child of that era.
I mean, like, you know, at least it was a video game that I could reinstall that I broke. You know, as
True.
opposed to like an actual physical thing.
As opposed to me accidentally deleting the auto exec file.
Yeah,
I
you
didn't.
kinda need
I
that.
didn't delete the auto exec file, but I did nearly brick it by adjusting some of the parameters, trying to get a game running, because I saw my dad do it once.
Well, no, that's not good at all.
That and the config.sys, but luckily he knew his way
Same
around
here.
computers, so he was able to fix it.
Autoexec.bat and
Config.sys.
Oh,
Boot
Alright.
disks, man, nobody today knows what boot disks were and how necessary they often were.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a game that was also ahead of its time, but for very, very different reasons.
Okay.
Let's discuss Chrono Trigger.
I mean, like you can't have like a conversation about video games that were ahead of their time without Chrono Trigger. Like I'm sure me, like everyone else, could go down a list, and I will let other people go down that list first, because like it's like what can you not say about Chrono Trigger?
Well, let's just start with the fact that it had multiple endings.
Mhm.
Well, first we got to talk a little bit about just Chrono Trigger itself, because Chrono Trigger was a special game. I mean, that game was made by what's referred to as the Dream Team.
Yep.
Because you had Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy. You had Yuji Horii, who was the creator of Dragon Quest, and you had Akira Toriyama, who's like famous throughout the anime sphere. Dragon Ball is one of the most famous of his, but I mean that right there, and then you add in Nobuo Uematsu,
and
who is still doing soundtracks, by the way. Who is
Yeah.
still doing soundtracks? We
He
had
is
that
still-
argument
he-
earlier.
Isn't he about to do his last one?
He's finished his last complete game. He is still open to doing individual tracks.
Gotcha.
But what he wanted to do is he wanted to focus more on his own music at this point. And you know what? The guy's earned it.
Mhm. Yeah.
But anyway,
100.
sorry, you were Yoshinori who?
no, Yasunori Mitsuda.
Mitsuda, yeah.
I mean, granted, he wasn't considered Dream Team yet. This was his, hey, I want to actually do soundtrack. Please, 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 please. And they gave it to him for Chrono Trigger, and he came through. He came through and showed his stuff.
Yes, he absolutely did. And I think Uematsu had a lot
oh yeah, he was a mentor to him.
Exactly.
Sure.
So like this is one of those, you have a master and his protege who is wonderkind in his own right. And so it was like the Chrono Trigger soundtrack is iconic.
Yes.
Still one of the best to this day.
So anyway,
And
so with a
Go ahead.
team like that, you're gonna end up with something groundbreaking.
Well, and let's take into account some of the other mechanics. Like it was the first game where it wasn't the first game where you had like multiple party members who you tagged in or out, but it was the first game that I can remember where depending on who you had these double techs and triple techs. Like I remember doing one of those for the first time. It's just like, whoa.
That's
Like,
true.
like like this just opens, so my combinations mean something. Like it opened up a whole new avenue of strategy if you deploy that in your game. And it was, it was the first time where you maybe you didn't get everyone. Maybe you missed this guy over here. Like maybe you didn't get, Magus was the first secret character that I knew of.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Did Final Fantasy IV have a secret character? I want to say no.
FF4 did not. 6 did.
Right.
Yeah.
6 had Umaru and Gogo.
Mhm.
But like I was trying to make sure that I didn't just skip over something.
Now,
and-
a lot of the remakes of 4 have added in all sorts of different things. It's not necessarily like secret characters, but
I wouldn't count that. I
Yeah.
mean, especially, yeah. But no, not you think about it, when you first mentioned Chrono Trigger, I was thinking like, was it really ahead of its time? Because I just feel like it was the pinnacle of its time. But now I think about it, it had the accepted implementation of New Game Plus.
That too.
It had the multiple endings.
it had
the tech combo. Yeah, it actually had a lot.
it had the concept of time travel and going back in time would change something in the future.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say that while I do want to attribute that particular mechanic to Chrono Trigger, there was another game that did that before. And I will get to that in a second, but let's keep talking about Chrono Trigger.
I was going to say, let's not move away from Chrono
Yeah,
Trigger.
yeah,
And
no,
then
no,
it had
no,
the,
no,
it had
we'll
the
get to that- we'll
dynamic
get to that
fight
next.
setup.
Mm-hmm.
Like every
Yeah, yeah,
other
yeah.
RPG, it's you're on one side, they're on the other. This thing is you're moving around, and
Yeah.
it makes the fight so much more cinematic.
The fact
Yeah,
that there's not a separate map for the battle scene.
Exactly. Dragon Quest, you couldn't even see your characters. You only saw the enemies show up. Final Fantasy, you were in separate panels at first. And at this point now, it's like you're in the same map. They move around, and so their placement on the battlefield actually affects how your abilities will affect them.
Right. No, I mean, like, there was just, like, really, like, I think it's fair to say, and I don't think anyone's going to argue with me here, that Chrono Trigger is the unicorn.
It really is.
Like it's one of those, like, Doom was like just covers so much for firsts and being ahead of its time, and Chrono Trigger was the same way. And while not everyone implemented the complete Chrono Trigger package, I'm very sad to say that I feel like the double and triple techs could have been utilized a little bit better in other games and in systems across.
Well,
like, there was just
it's funny
so
you mention
much.
it, because I feel like Chrono Cross failed at the double and triple techs miserably.
I mean,
there was only a handful of them, and they were very rare. Would you ever actually have the opportunity to use them?
Mm-hmm.
To the point where it's like, why were they even there? The only game that I've ever seen bring in the text, like the combo text in an RPG, is Breath of Fire 4. It is the only game that I've actually seen do as well, if not improve on Chrono Trigger.
I feel Sea of Stars actually came close.
I haven't gotten around to playing that one yet, but
I think you'd really enjoy that one.
yeah.
I'm very slowly working because I've got so many games. Like, I just Hades 2 just did an update today, and I've been playing that a little bit.
Although while we're talking about Chrono Trigger, have either of y'all seen the trailer for Threads of Time?
Never heard of it.
No.
This is an Threads of Time. This is an indie game that was announced. I think it's indie that was announced. I first saw it like a couple of months ago, I want to say. It looks like the trailer. Oh, maybe it was just a couple weeks ago. No, it's got to be longer than that. Anyway, it looks like they haven't mentioned Chrono Trigger, but as you watch the trailer, it looks like an absolute love letter to the game. Traveling back in time, you're going to specific eras. The art even looks very reminiscent of it. I put a trailer and watch together, but I don't know if that's something we want to play while we're talking Chrono Trigger or not. But it's worth just sort of having it play in the background for a minute so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah. So it's just Chrono Trigger was it really did come either ahead of its time or like one of you was saying, at the peak of its time, because it's just sort of everyone who was there for its inception was affected by it. Like everyone who played it was just like, there is something different right here.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where I have friends who are post gamers who became gamers later on in life as adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried to sell them on Chrono Trigger, and they're just like, meh. And it's like, how can you? Well, for the particular person I'm talking about, let's also keep in mind that this is the guy. It's like when we did Chrono Trigger, it's like, all right, this is all right. How long until the end of the game? It's like, oh, bud, like you've got like 40, 60 hours, and that's just like the first playthrough. It's like 40, 60, bro, no.
40, 60 hours?
Like, he does not, when he says bro, no, like he likes those first person shooters. If a game's longer than 12 hours, he's out.
Chrono Trigger's actually on the shorter side as far as RPGs go. I mean, honestly, the reason why it's still the best implementation of the New Game Plus is because other games, the New Game Plus takes way too long, but Chrono Trigger doesn't. Like, Persona, do you want to do New Game Plus for Persona? I'm like, I just put in like 150 hours. No, I don't want to do New Game Plus. Chrono Trigger, it was only 8 hours. Sure, I'll do another run.
Yeah, like I've got.
Like the first run isn't that long. I mean, it takes longer, but subsequents are really fast.
Exactly.
The more we talk about this, the more I think we just need to have a Chrono Trigger episode.
100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100.
Yeah. If we did an FF6 episode, Chrono Trigger absolutely deserves one.
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. But I mean, like maybe that was just me, but I didn't know about New Game Plus. So like when I played Chrono Trigger, I went and I made sure I was like leveling everyone up. I long gamed it. Like I took my time. Like I absolutely went 40 hours in Chrono Trigger for my first run. And then it was finished and I was like, what's this New Game Plus thing?
Well, the phrase was coined for Chrono Trigger.
Right.
Like it wasn't necessarily the first game to invent the concept, but the phrase New Game Plus was Chrono Trigger.
Actually,
exactly.
Well, I mean, around the game that came around, Lufia 2 came around the same time. Nick called it New Game Plus as well, but it was functionally different. But yeah,
I'm just gonna say this right now: Chrono Trigger took Lufia's lunch.
Hey, it did.
Sorry, Lufia. We love you, but like no. But yeah, like it's that perfect. It's that perfect axiom of nostalgia. Great design, both visually and game design. Great, just great playthrough. Ton of replayability, and just so very well thought through that, and just came out at the perfect time where it could be enjoyed by the masses and is remembered fondly for it. Like I would find it hard to think that anyone could come out with a game that would approach that today.
Right. Someone put something on here that I know of it, but I don't know enough about it. Day of the Tentacle. Who put that on?
That was where I was going next. So that's a great segue, actually. So when we're talking about time travel and time travel puzzling, let's talk about Day of the Tentacle. Now, for those of you at home who aren't very familiar with it,
hey, Mr. Tentacle Guy.
Well, there was this game called Maniac Mansion for the NES. It was not very good. But one of the things that came out of it was like these tentacles. And so Day of the Tentacle came out from LucasArts as kind of like a point and click puzzler. In the same Maniac Mansion type thing. And then, you had...
I need to interject.
Sure, go ahead.
Maniac Mansion, there was a version on the NES, but it came out before that.
Okay.
Yeah, it originally came out on the Commodore 64 and Apple II.
Was it?
And then on DOS. So it was like, it definitely predates the NES version. So it was a point and click. You didn't have to worry, like deal with the NES controller. So it definitely did play better. but yeah, it just so we're clear, the don't judge Maniac Mansion based on the NES version.
No. I mean, like it wasn't. As point and clicks go, they were better. It is more my.
It was one of the earlier ones.
True enough. But as you can see on screen, right now we're looking at like the opening sequence in which Purple Tentacle gets two little nubbins, which I guess.
Well, first he drinks the nuclear sludge.
Yes, he drinks the nuclear sludge, and then he gets the two nubbins, and that somehow is gonna get his way through world domination. And then from that, you see now our characters. God, I forget all of their names, but basically what ends up happening is through the sequences towards the very beginning, these three are your playable characters, and they each get shunted into different times, one in the past, one in the future, one in the present. And so you have to solve puzzles by doing things in the past so that things open up in the present and in the future, etc., etc. So yeah, I remember this game because that was such a cool mechanic that they had to do. It wasn't just a point and click. It click like, you know, the King's Quests and stuff, and you run over here. It's like you have three characters, and each character has like a time frame. You're running through the same thing, but things have changed, and so the scene is a little different. And in order to get the next person through, you've got to do something. Or I think you could send things back as well. You could get something from another time frame,
or you could flush them through the porta potty between time frames.
Yes, that too.
Yeah,
there was a porta potty
because yes, your time machine is the porta potty. So in order to get objects from one character to another, you had to flush them through the porta potty.
Yeah. Stepping back to Maniac Mansion, which was the predecessor to this, I believe Maniac Mansion is actually the game that introduced the verb noun interface of, like, like where you can actually say walk to here, pick up this object. So you click on the verb and then you click on what you want to do that verb on. So it's just, yeah, it's a very, very, so when we're talking ahead of their time, Maniac Mansion is absolutely a part of that.
So,
but yeah.
I mean, that's why I put that on there, is because, again, time puzzles are just cool.
Yes.
They are.
No, LucasArts, they really played with a lot of this stuff. I mean, just LucasArts point and click adventure games, there's just something special about.
I think we should maybe like take a second to like just maybe recognize, because it is along the lines, LucasArts was really kind of ahead of the game for their time period in both animation and just, they were such weird, cool games that you would they would get. I mean, like,
that's where Tim Schafer came from. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that they took from like, because the battle kind of was between LucasArts and Sierra for a while. But one of the things that LucasArts did is they took away a lot of the stupid ways to die.
Yes.
Most of the LucasArts games you played, you couldn't die. Now, not all of them, but they streamlined a lot of things that other companies had done. And that's one thing that LucasArts was just brilliant at, is taking a concept and streamlining it.
Absolutely. I mean, you could tell that these were all like nerds like us who were just having fun.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. Like to be an adult back in the times of LucasArts, back when you could probably make a pretty decent living at being a game designer.
Well, that's one of the things, if we're pulling in the grumpy old folks from, talking about the good old days aspect of our show.
Might as well. That's a part of it.
That's one of the things that I miss the most, is just everything was indie developers. There was no AAA. And so a lot of times you discovered these games through word of mouth. And there's just something special about finding a game that your friends didn't know about and saying, "Ooh, let me show you this." And it was just a different time, and I miss that time. Just the Wild West of game development.
Speaking of Wild West.
Don Bluth.
This
Oh boy!
This-
Oh boy!
this game was ahead of its time in a very different way.
A very
Yeah.
odd way, a very creative way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Because this
it-
game is just a series of cutscenes, really.
yeah, it's
And quick time
just quick.
events.
It's just quick time events. That's all this game is. But
Yeah.
the
But you're not
presentation-
prompted on the correct action. You have to determine what the correct action is.
Yes.
Time events the way they were meant to be.
Well, this game was made to eat quarters because this game was originally in the arcade, and it was just not just you have to do it at the right time. You have to figure out what you have to do, and so it's built around trial and error, which means you are shoveling quarters into that machine.
Because there's only 5 buttons. There's 4 directions and the sword.
And yeah, the do something.
And you have to determine which of those 5 buttons is the correct button to press in any given scenario.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the way that the cabinets were built, because this used laser discs.
That's right. I
And-
forgot because they were like these big honky things.
Yeah. For those who aren't aware, okay, I'm going to have to step 2 steps back. CDs are discs that held sounds before MP3s were a thing.
Mhm.
And laser discs were basically giant CDs. The reason they're called CDs is it's compact disc because it's a laser disc that's much, much smaller.
It's the precursor to DVDs.
They don't even
'Cause
do
it-
DVDs anymore.
Because it was more than just sound. It was sound and video. They were ancient,
Right.
giant discs.
Yes. But they held for their time a massive amount of data because you could have animations and videos and stuff like this, and essentially you just had time to do a single command. I have seen this technology used on Netflix before because Netflix introduced a few games that followed a similar concept. Timing was a little bit less sensitive, but it's the same concept. So that's how ahead of their time this game was.
The New Day Escape, the Undertaker being one of those games.
But yeah, this is also just in terms ahead of its time. It essentially, and I don't know. This might be me giving it too much credit. I sort of attribute this is like the first true game trailer because the trailer that would play when no one was playing it was the cinematic thing that is, it's there to entice you to play the game.
Well, and a lot of games did stuff like that, but this one, it's one of those you look at it, the graphics are amazing, and it's because it's not
It's not graphics.
graphics as
videos.
it's pre-rendered cutscenes.
It's essentially the first interactive movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep, 100.
That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
And then it
Don
became a TV
frickin'
show.
Bluth.
So
And yeah, it was Don Bluth, and this is a guy who he makes movies. He started at Disney and then went off and started his own animation company, and he's like, let's go into video games. And they didn't make many. There was this one. There was Space Ace. I think there's a Dragon's Lair 2.
there was a Dragon's Lair too.
But and so he didn't do a ton, but still, you look at it, and this is one that even people who didn't like the game, they remember this game because the first time you see it, you're just like, "What is this?"
It also invented the quick time event.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah. So,
Totally.
all right. Another one that's on this list, I don't know who put it, but I have an inkling. Castlevania 2. Simon's
Yeah,
Quest.
That would have been me. This
I
game,
can agree with you on this.
this game was so far ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it sparked a genre, and to a degree, you could also put like the original Metroid on this too, where Simon's Quest, it in a lot of ways it's kind of critically panned, but the thing is, it's because it was trying something new. It didn't perfect the formula, but it started it.
Yeah.
And that formula was not perfected until Symphony of the Night. But by then, It now
whoa!
is its
You're
own-
just gonna
Whoa.
jump over Super Metroid like that?
Thank
Well,
you.
in
Okay,
Metroid's
it's okay.
case,
You can jump
dude.
over Super Metroid.
In this genre, you can.
Okay, fine,
in this
fine.
series, yes.
In
but-
this series, in the Castlevania series, yes, okay, yes, obviously Super Metroid, but
well, the thing
Super
is,
Metroid perfected it for Metroid. Symphony of the Night perfected it for Castlevania. But I'm saying like the fact that this is the castle part of
Yes.
Metroidvania. I mean, this is the Vania part of Metroidvania. And this is the game that started that concept where you're on one continuous map instead of separate levels, and you build your strength, you collect items that open up other paths and areas so you can get to the end. And as a kid, I actually found that concept fascinating. Like, I absolutely loved Castlevania 2. Even though I know people are like, oh, it's not as good as Castlevania. Castlevania 3 is the best. There was something special about 2 that kept drawing me back to it. And I think it's because I like, and today I love Metroidvanias.
there's a continuity to it.
Yeah. And I love being able to go back to an area that I visited earlier. Which, actually, now that I think about it, there was another game that actually had that concept that I liked, but it's often forgotten, even though Castlevania 2 is remembered because it's still part of a ongoing series. But did you guys ever play Battle of Olympus?
I didn't.
No.
I don't
No.
want to get too distracted from Castlevania 2. So, but just,
Sure.
let's come back to it after you talk.
Sure. No, but it just came to me while I was discussing this. But yeah, the fact that you can go back to where you started, everything's open, available. The only thing limiting your progress is if you can figure out some way to get there with the tools you have. And I don't know, I just love that formula so much. And even though a lot of people have a lot of criticisms that are largely valid about this game, I love it just because it was so ahead of its time.
I completely agree. So I think one of the biggest problems that Castlevania 2 faced is actually that it was ahead of its time. When this game came out, there was no Metroidvania genre. I mean, Metroid had been a thing, but people were not used to playing a Castlevania game and going around looking for different things, like trying to unlock stuff so that they can go to a different area that they hadn't before. Just the concept wasn't there. They had played the first Castlevania game. And so I think, honestly, the biggest flaw of this game is that it came after the first one.
Yeah.
Because when people came to it, they got something completely different than they expected. I remember, like, that was my problem with it the first time I played it. I was like, I'm going right, and now I can't go right anymore. What's the problem? And it's just because I didn't have the stuff I needed to do. Like, I didn't understand how to do it. And the first time I figured it out was actually when I watched a video that I've talked to Splice about many times. The one with, what's his name? Skip Johnson,
Yep.
World Video Game Champion.
You've told me about Skip Johnson.
But yeah, that was the first time I realized what this game was. This game and Metal Gear. I didn't really understand how they worked. I was younger when I first played them, and watching that video, it suddenly let me realize, oh, that's how this works. And it's just, because like you said, this game was so far ahead of its time. It came out when its genre didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
No, this is still my personal favorite Castlevania game. Now,
Really?
I haven't played a lot of the newer ones, but just this one has always felt special to me.
Have you played Symphony of the Night?
Like, most of the, like, any that can actually be considered Metroidvanias except for this one, I haven't played yet.
Okay, interesting.
I've played 1, 3, and 4, I think.
Okay.
Outside of this one.
I've played most of the Castlevania Metroidvanias.
I want to play them. I just haven't really. I don't know. I'd love somebody to give me a definitive order to play them in.
Except, ironically, Symphony of the Night, because it has never been made available on a platform that I own.
So that's the thing. I did play Symphony of the Night, and then I have played the two with Soma Cruz, the
Dawn and
yeah, and I'm trying to think. Have I beaten another one as well? But and I did play Igarashi's new Bloodstain Ritual of the Night, and that was fantastic too. Was Iga involved in Castlevania 2? I don't know. Because he's kind of the main, Castlevania, Metroidvania style guy. And he still makes them, and they're still good, even though they're not with Konami anymore.
To be fair,
Yeah,
no one should be with Konami anymore.
I don't see his name on the list of major players.
Okay.
The director was Hitoshi Akamatsu.
All right,
Were you guys going to circle back to something?
Well, yeah. I was going to ask Mortal Kombat. Who put that on here?
That would be me.
That's
All
fair.
right.
So, like, in looking at something, as I was previously on a previous version of I Think We Overleveled, I've mentioned my love for fighting games, although I'm not very good at them. A good portion of my youth was spent in the arcades, and some of my fondest memories of my 20s was hanging out with my friend Jake, and playing any fighter that we've got to pass the time between games. And so one thing that's become like very apparent in or very prolific in fighting games these days is the finisher, the hyper combo, the stuff. This was the first game to have a finisher with the finish him type thing and the elaborate button combo where you rip somebody's head off or something like that. And Mortal Kombat was the first of its kind for many reasons. Even though fighters had existed before, and even like fighters where they used the human models before had existed, nothing was ever quite this violent or graphic. I know it wasn't the first video game to ever like make the news, but it was the first one I can remember at least. Was it the first video game to get a movie though?
No,
I'm trying to think.
No, Super Mario Brothers, dude.
Dude, is that pre-Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I've never seen the original Bob Hopkins John Leguizamo
Oh,
Super
Wow.
Mario Brothers.
dude, you need to visit Utah, and we will have a night.
Okay,
it's a guilty pleasure.
It is.
it?
It really is. It's very guilty, but also very pleasure.
It's bad, but that's the fun.
When I was a kid, I loved this piece of garbage. So
Okay. All right,
A Reagan
but I mean,
endorsement.
like Mortal Kombat was while Street Fighter had existed already, and so you already had like the combo moves and stuff like that, and the fireballs and things. This was the first one where there was like a prolific. Here's how you finish it, and you get like something. Like maybe Street Fighter might have had like a separate finish for certain things. I don't think they did though. I think this was the first one where it's just like, okay, you can just punch him to death and just do another fireball. Or
yeah,
the finisher.
The finishing move originated in Mortal Kombat 1.
Exactly, and for that alone, I feel like it is ahead of its time because I mean it was. After this was what everyone was trying to emulate, that finish him aspect.
You didn't even go into the graphics.
No, I mean like
Because it had like the motion capture style, but pixel graphics, and that was ahead of its time. That's why it looks so dated, was because it was ahead of its time.
I know, but like I
that
think
is an
we had
interesting
determined on a previous
mix.
on a previous episode that this was not the first one to use this motion capture.
It wasn't.
It was Pit Fighter, I think.
But you don't have to be the first to still be ahead of your time.
Yeah,
Fair
I don't
enough.
know. I thought rotoscoping looked ugly even then, personally, but
I just remember
I thought
being
graphically it looked terrible always.
I just remember being blown away because I was like, that's a real person playing this character. What's going on?
They're totally fair enough. 100% fair enough.
And and the arcade version definitely looked better than the SNES versions and such. So,
but I mean, Mortal Kombat, like it's still a brand today, and for those of us who lived through its inception, like it is one of those things that definitely we can say was ahead of its time, because again, like a lot of games came after this and tried to emulate kind of being more edgy and stuff.
no, I loved these.
It was the game that spawned the ESRB.
This is very true.
That is true.
Well, but and
100%.
this literally was the gaming industry going through its teenage years.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Well, it's because
No, I think that was like the mid 2000s.
I was gonna say that's the early God of War stuff.
Shadow the Hedgehog, the split between Jack
Okay,
and
fair
Daxter
enough.
1 and 2.
Fair enough.
Fair.
no, but when I say the game, I said the gaming industry going through its teenage years.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's
'cause
true.
this-
It's showing the
'cause this
acne,
is-
but also the promise.
Yeah, this is them
Right.
sitting there saying to themselves, "We want to do something a bit more edgy." The Sonic stuff was the gaming, the Shadow the Hedgehog era. That's the gaming audience going through its teenage years, and we're like, "Yeah, we want Shadow. He's cool. Why? Well, because he is."
This is Keanu Reeves.
Well,
Who's
we
Splice
didn't
Hates?
know that yet.
Wait, Splice hates Keanu Reeves?
No.
Yeah, like it's a weird feud that
Splice,
they've
how
had.
could you?
Literally the opposite.
I don't
Anyway,
know. Like apparently, like being like a good dude and making sure that like
I'm gonna move
behind the
on from
scenes
this
and people
slander.
can-
I like Keanu Reeves.
That explains why I found a shredded, burned picture of him in the garbage the other day.
We're gonna be talking about two Eidos games here, because Eidos is a company that, boy, they were ahead of their time in some ways, and then kind
Behind
of
the
pissed
times
it
in
all
others.
away. Deus
Oh,
Ex.
That's a lot of that is Square's fault, to be fair.
Yeah,
To be fair, Deus Ex.
but Deus Ex is it's ahead of its time in a couple ways. The storyline, for one, it gets into some stuff that's just too real nowadays. But the ability to just go through the entire game and play however you want, and you can solve problems that way.
Mhm.
This was a game that was so far ahead of its time, especially in that regard.
Was this the first for the first game where you could do a true pacifist run? Like I'm asking that legitimately because I didn't get into Deus Ex.
Except for
until
maybe
later
like
on.
maybe the like old Metal Gears might have been potentially older. Well, I don't know. Could you do true pacifist on the old NES Metal Gears? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but this is
Metal
a
Gear
game.
Solid 2, I remember there's not, I don't know if it was a true pacifist run, but you could avoid, like, that's when they first introduced stun damage, I remember.
Yeah.
But this is one that I heard about,
Mhm.
and it was making waves, and it made waves in a very slow and organic way.
All I know, well, this game was huge among my group of friends. Like everyone was talking about it. Everyone wanted to play it. Everyone was getting it. I borrowed it from my friends, and I tried to play it on my computer, on my family computer. You know how we talk about getting frames per second, FPS. I got seconds per frame. I could not play it, unfortunately, on my computer at all. It's actually part of what prompted me to really want to be able to build my own computer.
That was me in Descent.
But yeah, but like this
I
game.
didn't know you played Descent.
I wanted to, I wasn't able to.
But like I had friends, they talked about it nonstop. I had a friend who was actually my chemistry teacher's son, and he brought the game in because the chemistry teacher had his own iMacs that he set up in the classroom, and so his son came and installed Deus Ex on the computer in the classroom, and so we'd even play it in class. And yeah, man, this game was awesome. Even though for a completionist like me, it's an absolute nightmare because, as Splice was saying, there's so many different ways you can solve each problem. So I would try to solve the problem each way before progressing, which was a bit crazy and extreme and made the game take too long. I still haven't beaten it, but I don't know. This game was cool, and just the options and just kind of the way you could spec your character and the storyline, the stuff that happened in it is just too real now. And yeah, I don't know. This is a cool game for sure.
Yeah, and that's sort of just the perfect way to describe it. It was just, it knew what it was doing. It was cool. But speaking of Eidos, the other one that they did was very revolutionary, Thief.
This one people talked about a whole lot less. Honestly, I think I
don't understand why. It was such a great game.
Well, I think that's kind of part of what makes it so ahead of its time is the fact that I heard people gushing about this game like crazy when it was over a decade old. Like, I think what really made this game be really well known and talked about a lot was when the bad Thief game came out on modern platforms, and people were like, "Oh, this is terrible. Do you remember how great it was?" No, I hadn't heard. You should check out the original. It was amazing. And I feel
was that Thief 3 that came out for like consoles? Because I remember getting Thief 3 for like
well, it was just called Thief.
Xbox. No.
It was just like a relaunch reboot that like everyone panned, but it made people aware of the original game, and so I feel like there was a surge of popularity of the original game when the new Thief came out.
Yeah, no, I remember that. No, I have stronger memories of the new one just because Splice was there when I had my
when you
terrified
high-stepped
moment.
out of your living room and into the kitchen.
It was in a haunted asylum in a wheelchair moved by itself.
I'm just sitting there in the kitchen, just making some food, and I just hear him go, "Ah!" And he just high steps like he's running through tires or something.
It was just...
It creeped him out in the most hilarious way possible.
Like there's a bug on the floor and you're trying to keep your feet away from it.
I was not okay.
Oh, I mean, like it was definitely one of those. I also think it was like the first game where like you could like sneak attack and just like I remember playing one of the Thief games and just in one area, just like they kept spawning like villagers, and I'd had a bad day, so I just took it out on all the villagers. Just like suck, drag them into the alley, wait, suck, drag them into the alley. And then that was like 20 minutes of just me.
Oh, so a war crime. You did a war crime.
I did all the war crimes.
You were a monster.
I was, but it was a digital person, so it's fine.
Just remember, it's not a war crime if it's funny.
Just remember, it's not a war crime if there's no war.
Fair point. Okay.
I actually
yes
have another one to throw in here.
That being,
I mean, we're talking about a bunch of games, and we're talking about a bunch of stuff, and like they were ahead of their times because they were genre defining. But what about games that just invented the genre? And of course, there's no better for that.
Okay. Was the one
The Guitar Hero.
I would put Guitar Hero second.
Would you?
For inventing the genre, because DDR came first.
DDR came first, but DDR was dance game. Like this was the first one that I know where it's like, all right, well, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna have to do this with your hand, like you're actually. And I don't know if you guys like. I had a friend because I didn't get into Guitar Hero. I got into one of the later versions, Rock Band, because I got into
Guitar Hero.
But I went and I got like the whole thing. Like I have a drum throne which I bought specifically to play guitar Rock Band with my friends. And So like I would play drums, like we'd have somebody on guitar, we'd have somebody on bass, bring their
Yeah.
controller over to do the bass, somebody do the singing, and then we'd have a friend of mine who will remain nameless, who would just sit there. It's like, I can, you can just play real instruments. And it's like, but we don't want to play
The
real
stop
instruments. We
having
want to
fun,
play
guys,
these instruments.
guy.
This is a game. And it's like, I play a real instrument. It's like, you play a flute, bro, and you played that in band like forever ago. Like, and I'm sure you can still play it, but I mean, this.
Yeah, I don't think they have a Flute Hero game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they should. But like Guitar Hero, which again, like DDR, fine, like you could say that, but I feel like they're, while they're alike, they're separate, because in DDR, like you can do, you have to jump on a pad, and I would argue if we're going to go with that, with the kind of, jump on a pad exercise dance kind of game, Nintendo did it first with the stupid power pad that you ran on to do like the track and field game on. So
there was we
I'll make
had
that
a
argument.
game called Dance Aerobics. It was
I
not good.
I would argue that it was it was done by Nintendo before I knew of DDR. Maybe I'm wrong there, but like
I would argue
in the
on
cultural
some level, Guitar Hero is what's responsible for Baggins and me being friends.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
But again, getting to it, like Guitar Hero, you had this peripheral. And for those of you who may not have the best hand-eye coordination like me, and maybe guitar playing, I'll say this straight up. I always wished I could play like guitar or bass, but just like I legitimately have like hand-eye coordinations that I went to therapy for when I was young, and so it just could never just make my fingers do the thing to make the sound nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was like as close as I could get to it, sort of, kind of on easy. And so like you could play like a rock star, and then like in later games, like you get to like change up what your person looks like, and you have Rock Band, where you would make your Rock Band with your friends and just have fun with it. And it was a different type of game. And sure, like you could make the argument that it's a rhythm game, but it's a different rhythm game. You're not dancing around, you're not jumping around, you're having to like coordinate your fingers and your hands, and if you've got friends, you've got to coordinate with them too.
No, this game runs deep for me. Like, honestly, spoiler alert, there is a game of this sort that will show up in my list for games you need to play to know me.
Oh, is that an official feature now?
I mean, we've talked about doing others in the future, but I'm kind of figuring mine out, and there is a game of this sort that will definitely show up.
Hey guys, I hate to break in. I need to restart my computer.
Okay, we'll see you in a bit.
I'll be back.
All right.
No problem. So
this game, this series was very, very important. It defines a certain time of my life.
Not just defines a certain time of your life. Again, like this made the whole instrument rhythm game popular. You had this, and then you had like Rock Band, DJ Hero, which I still have the peripheral for around here somewhere, I think. I soundtrack to DJ Hero somewhere, actually, in my iTunes.
I still have all of my instrument rhythm games. I've got this one. I've got Donkey Konga. I've got all the Karaoke Revolution games. I mean, it was like, I actually, this is what Splice was talking about, us being friends, because I hosted parties where I would talk to people in the apartments on the same floor as me, and we would have like Guitar Hero in one room, we'd have DDR in one room, we had Donkey Konga in one room, we had Karaoke Revolution in one. I called them rhythm nights. I threw about 6 or 7 of them.
You just basically had like a floor and a con going on. Like, it was Baggins Con.
But it was like we had so many people show up. It was great.
Right on. Like, and like again, like I didn't play it as much, but would you argue that, like, ahead of its time, not just ahead of its time,
genre defining, absolutely,
100.
And then Rock Band came in and kind of took it to the next level, and
Exactly.
But yeah, but Guitar Hero is the one that's special to me.
I would even say in its own right that Rock Band is also right up there in ahead of its own time, because it made this playable with friends, whereas
Mhm.
with this version, it's just you. And,
Well-
and whoever you're with is watching you.
You could
And,
do
I mean,
competitive.
It's a spectacle.
There was a
Yeah.
competitive mode.
I didn't know that. I didn't play the original, but
Oh,
I mean,
I
Well, I
was
mean-
I was the obnoxious kid who would take all comers.
no, I mean, like for me, I would watch, because again, rhythm, and like the reason why I played the drums is that that was more my speed for that, as far as rhythm games went. Honestly, like apparently you were at these rhythm nights. What about you? Do you agree? on
Oh
this?
no, this game is, yeah, it defined a genre.
Yeah.
It's also revolutionary in a little bit of a different way. I kind of view Rock Band as the harbinger of a lot of bad trends in gaming, with how it was EA. I can't remember who owned this, or was it Activision that owned this?
It was Activision.
Activision, where Activision started literally just milking it dry, releasing like 2 Guitar Hero games a year.
Yep.
Or doing something like you had to pay for like for like track packs, or pay per song. That's now that you've mentioned that, Rock Band was the first game where I really like started noticing microtransactions, because I remember it specifically because I wanted to get like the Foo Fighters album specifically because that's my favorite band.
Uh-huh.
And it was just like, man, this is more than the actual album is.
Well, part of what happened is, I think starting with Guitar Hero 3, it went to a different development team. And after, like, Guitar Hero 1 and 2, in my opinion, were amazing. 3 went to a different team and it got a little funky. And then Aerosmith came out and went back to the Guitar Hero 2 interface, I believe. But and then it just sort of went, everything went, when Rock Band came out, there's like, okay, now we're just putting everything into Rock Band.
Yeah.
And they started doing like the song packs and and stuff. But like, Guitar Hero came out on the PS2. There were no microtransactions.
Nope. Like I said, I think Rock Band was the first one that I remember. I remember any microtransactions for, at least of that nature.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I've got to say about that. But I felt like it deserved like a little cut in there. Like it
definitely does.
Okay, all right.
So I put one on here. I put Quake on, because Quake, I believe, was the first one to offer, the first FPS to offer LAN play. Because before that, if you're playing multiplayer, you're doing like split screen, or it's just not. It's multiplayer wasn't really a thing. But Quake, it came in, and suddenly you can, instead of just running around playing Doom, you're fighting your friends, you're fighting your buddies. And it was just, I remember the very first time I was invited to a LAN party. A friend of mine, his dad worked at a computer store, and so after hours, he had his birthday party there. We hooked all the display computers. They had a lab up onto a LAN, and we just spent the night blowing each other up.
Was this first, or did GoldenEye come first? I genuinely don't know.
Again, LAN. So
okay,
with GoldenEye, right, you're playing split screen.
Right.
But with a LAN,
right,
you have your own computer, and it's also keyboard and mouse rather than joystick. So this, I think, was kind of defining for, this is how FPS play goes. This one, and then Unreal Tournament kind of took it into a different direction as well. But I remember, like, it was every teenage boy's dream, because like you're using nail guns to shoot at your friends.
Well, and it's high octane, high speed. There was nothing like it.
Well, and you're getting these, when you get blown up, there's a notification that comes that says like you ate his boomstick, and it's just like, okay, this is different than anything that's happened before. Like some may say, consider this the beginning of the downfall of society. Who knows? But I just remember this was just an iconic, game-changing thing.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
it really is. But there's not much more to add to than that. It just is.
But it's just it was so over the top hardcore. And it's just one of those things. Like I wasn't the kid who loved hyper violent things, but I just remember seeing this and be like, what is this?
It speaks to your inner 12-year-old.
Uh-huh.
All right, who put KOTOR on here?
That would be me. Because again, I am an RPG nerd. And this was ahead of its time for a lot of reasons. There were some great Star Wars games that preceded this. I want to make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this was the first immersive one where it was you. You got to make your guy. And just, spoiler warnings, by the way, anyone who's watching, if you haven't played Knights of the Old Republic right now, I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, the game is 30 years old at this point. Like, the time has expired for this, no doubt. But like, the plot twist where you were actually like this Revan that everyone was talking about. And
what?
I know, right? Hey, I told you, like, it's 30 years old. If you haven't
dang
seen it by
it!
now,
Too bad I only beat it because I loved it to death.
Man, I was meaning to play that.
Actually, that moment was, how like often when like the twist comes, like the whole shocker, the reveal. I think that was like one of the few times that when the reveal happened, I actually was like, whoa, like.
No,
that
totally.
whole mind blown meme, like I actually think this is one of the few times where they pulled it off, and I'm like, wow, my mind is kind of blown with it. Yeah, like that is so cool.
It's the same concept as Luke, I am your father, but instead it's no, Luke, I am you.
Yeah, yes, and it was fantastic.
And it brought a lot of elements, which again existed, but like you got to do on such a huge level now, like, collecting your people. Like, it wasn't just, okay, I'm going to go I got to go here and I got to get Sabin and I got to go over there and I got to get Edgar and this, that, and the others. Like, you get them and then you nurture them. You can mess up. You can screw up your relationships with these people. You got to build them. This was also one of the first games. It wasn't, if not the first, but definitely one of the first that used a D20 system as the backdrop for it. Because as you can see on the screen, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and that's how you built you built every aspect of the character. It wasn't okay, here's the hero. He's a Dark Knight. Later on he's going to become a paladin. Here's, here's this person, they're this class. Here's this person, they're this class. Here's this person, here's this class, they're this class. You can decide, you want to be a fighter? Do you want to be a rogue? Do you want to be whatever the third one was? Force mage, whatevs. Or, you get, the Jedi over here. You've got a rogue over here. You've got somebody back there who's an engineer or doing something. You've got HK-47, one of the best NPCs that you could have. Like, and it was the birth of the modern day RPG.
Yeah. It wasn't the first to do that, but it definitely
was the most prolific.
Yeah, it's absolutely, because I remember Quest for Glory had a similar concept, but
fair enough.
But
like I said, I didn't know if it was the first, but
again, I mean, different genre.
Yeah,
I'd say, I don't know. There were other BioWare and Black Isle and Interplay, but they were more like D&D based, and the fact that this was a D20 Star Wars was pretty cool.
I mean, and
obligatory. I killed one of the party members and not realizing.
Yes, okay. I was thinking. I'm like, yes, it's the you talk about messing up relationships. Yeah, like accidentally killing one of your party members' children unknowingly. Yeah.
And it was the first game that I can remember playing where it wasn't linear. Like I wasn't destined to be the good guy no matter what. I could definitely be the bad guy if I wanted to. Not only can I be the bad guy, but I can corrupt everyone around me. I can make every single one of them fall to the dark side with me and be my evil army.
Wait, you can?
And-
Kami, you're scary sometimes.
Absolutely.
No, I thought
like
some of them didn't.
Nope.
Oh,
You can get
well. Turns out
every one of
I
them.
killed some people I didn't have to. I've killed multiple people.
Like,
Oops.
I mean, granted, there's a lot of safe scum going on there to achieve that. But I mean, you
Yeah,
had to
'cause
get
I-
some
Weren't
good.
there a couple people who wouldn't follow you to the dark side? I can't remember.
I killed.
There
at
maybe
the end,
one.
I had to kill the.
Jahani?
I don't remember anyone's names, but I ended up having to kill basically everyone that wasn't Bastila.
I mean, like, as far as I remember, I know I corrupted Bastila. I know I corrupted Rogue guy. That if you were a girl, she was your main romance.
What, Mission? Oh, wait, no. That's
Karth?
Rogue Girl.
Yeah, I think so. And then I
Is
know
Karth a Rogue?
and then HK is HK.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, he don't care. He's hilarious.
HK's ride or die.
Yeah, HK's ride or die. Cantharus. That's not his name. I'm messing it up. But like the Mandalorian guy, he was like you just sit there. It's like, yeah, be a Mandalorian. Like just kill everything for me. Like I don't care. Like just that's what Mandalorians do. Like yeah, Mandalore, go. And he's like, yes, you understand. Okay, whatever. And there was like engineer guy who was a Zybrek who like you had to get some roles. You had to get some roles in the right parts of the right conversations. Like I said, there was some save scum, but you could absolutely not only turn him to the dark side, but turn him into like a dark Jedi. Like you could turn quite a few of the non-Jedi characters into Jedi. Which was, again, amazing.
There apparently was a lot more depth to this game than even I thought, and I thought this game was pretty deep.
I mean, like, I sunk hundreds of hours into this game. Because why not? Like, it was Star Wars, and it was a Star Wars game that I could play on my Xbox. So, cool. And, it did the D&D system, which made it real easy for me to understand, already playing quite a few 3.0 D&D games at that time. And, it's saying to me because I understood the system very well, and I could just jump into it and play because I got all the mechanics from the get-go. And from it, like, you ended up with all these other games. Because I don't think without this, you don't end up with, like, your Dragon Ages or your Mass Effects and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, it put BioWare on the map, so...
I mean, it absolutely did, and it's kind of sad to see where they are right now. I'm still, side tangent, I'm still hoping that, Dragon Age 4 doesn't get judged too harshly. Because,
Well,
look,
I don't know. There were seeds of BioWare's downfall even in this game. It also had a stupid ending like Mass Effect, but
Yeah, but I mean, like, the journey was there. Like, and really, this is one of those games that it's all about the journey. And, like, again, and 2 was okay, but 2 was a different studio.
Well,
and
didn't 2 also get, like, rushed halfway through the development or something?
Oh yeah, it got kicked out because they were trying to get that out for Christmas.
Yeah,
imagine that. I mean, but that wasn't BioWare at that point. It was Raven Software. Am I remember that correctly?
Could be
something like that. It wasn't BioWare.
I know people who swear that 2 is the best one. But
speaking of Ravens, I think Baggins put Riven here, and I'm surprised it's not Mist.
So Mist definitely put it on the map, but I feel like Riven is the one that kind of exploded it. And Riven was a bit more ahead, I think.
Everyone talked about Mist, and no one talked about Riven from my memories of childhood.
Maybe it's just because I've been playing Riven lately, and that's just
that might be.
But I feel like there's an argument for either I think, because Myst definitely created it and defined it, but Riven perfected it, in my opinion.
Explain to me, because you're telling me that you're not smart enough to play Riven recently.
Okay. So that was the thing is I remember, like, I've been playing through the remake, and I was pulling it out and I was moving around and I just couldn't remember anything about the game. I was like, wow, I can't remember a thing. And I feel like I can't solve any puzzle, figure out what to do next. What am I forgetting? And finally I remembered what I was forgetting. And it's that I'm not smart enough to play Riven. And so, because it's such a, it's purely environmental storytelling. Like, and Myst may be a better version of it. You're right, but again, Riven is what I'm playing. It's what's on my mind, so it's what I put in. But with Myst, they just drop you on an island with a half a cutscene, basically saying, "As I fell into the fissure, I sent out this book and hoped someone could find something." And you're like, oh, and then suddenly you just show up on this island. You're walking around, you find a note that you hopefully have seen and not missed. And then you're just sort of left to your own devices. You know, you walk around, you see all of these really interesting places on this island, and it has different things that you can interact with. And like, there are switches that you can hit, and you're like, what does this switch do? I don't know what the point of this is. And you're not told anything. There's no tutorial, no instruction manual, just a cursor that's a hand that's pointing, and when you hover over certain things, it turns into an open palm hand, which you learn allows you to manipulate things. And it's just mind-blowing.
Myst was ahead of its time and aggravating players.
Myst is still ahead of its time in some ways.
I will agree with you there.
You know, for me, my relationship with Myst is actually pretty interesting, because I knew Myst was the game that was something that I knew more adults that played it than kids. So to me, it was the adult game, not because it was like mature in content, but
because kids aren't smart enough.
Well, yeah, because kids
I wasn't smart enough.
And, you know, but they were like big and so like I had like church leaders that were like, hey, I want to show you this computer game because I know you're into like computers and games, and this is one I absolutely love, and it's all these cool puzzles, and I'm like, oh, this seems really neat. And so, you know, I got to, you know, see it from that, but it's but for me, what was interesting was there was a book fair at school, and as I'm like going through the books, I see that, oh, there's this Myst book, and I'm like, what's this book? And it was, you know, Myst, the book of Atris, I think.
Atris,
yeah, Atris. Well, actually, let me pull it out right here. Yeah, Myst, the book of Atris, and I'm like, you know what? From the book fair, sure. I ordered it from Scholastic, and I got it, and I read it, and holy cow. That quickly became one of my favorite books.
The world building is phenomenal.
To the point where it's like, I actually think I like the novels that the creators made more so than the game by a long shot. Like,
well,
I read all the books. I haven't played all the games.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that Riven is what came to mind, because when it came to storytelling or like world building, Myst was really interesting, but Riven, it was just like, okay, there's a deeper story going on here. Like the story in Myst was much smaller than the story in Riven.
Was it?
Yes.
I will take your word for it.
Yeah, I had no clue, because as I've stated before, my dad and I had never even heard of adventure games, and so when he bought it, it was a walking simulator, and we didn't understand what we were doing at all.
Well, and like I said, they just drop you in. Like you're just on an island. You can click on stuff. It moves you to different places, and it's not just here's a puzzle you have to solve. It's okay. What is the puzzle? Not just you know, what is the answer, but what am I trying to solve even? And it's just such a brain burner, but when you start figuring stuff out, you feel brilliant.
That was
Probably
our
why it was
problem.
never
We
one of
didn't
my
figure
favorites.
anything
I never
out.
figured anything out.
That's the problem. All
But
right.
like,
To be
like
fair,
I
I
said,
didn't own it too, so I only got to use it at like 15-minute intervals at a friend's house.
well, like I said, I'm playing the remake right now, which apparently they've actually changed the nature of a lot of the puzzles because it controls differently. Like it's real time rather than click and move. And it like it I'm having to get a few tips from online guides just because I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm even supposed to do. So how am I supposed to like it's
like
fascinating.
So it's like serious business remake.
It's one of those games where you play it and you're like, whoever created this was brilliant.
All right, let's go with one more, and then we'll end. But we're going to be ending here on this high note.
Okay.
Metal Gear Solid 2.
Now, why
Oh,
2?
man.
Yeah. Why 2?
Why-
Splice. Explain yourself.
Yeah, I'm not the one who put it here.
Well,
Okay.
okay. I will say in my case, I probably put 2, largely because I still haven't been able to successfully play through 1 because the time I tried was on the Purple Wonder that I got from Baggins.
Explain
And,
the Purple Wonder.
The Purple Wonder was an old CRT TV that Baggins
Yeah.
had, and when I needed a
I got
TV, he graciously donated the Purple Wonder TV to me. But
So I got this TV. It actually worked fine when I first got it. I got it at a surplus sale at my university. And it was an old CRT TV, and I needed a CRT TV. And so I started playing it, or I used it, and I was playing. It was the TV I played my games on. And then suddenly the green started going out on it from time to time. It'd flicker, and then I'd have to bang it, and it'd come back on. And over time, it got worse and worse and worse until it was just showing purple, and it was just not reliable. But like it was still working to a degree when Looney and Lizzie got married, and I was just like, I am a college student who can't afford anything, but here I can give you this as a wedding present.
yeah, so he gave us a TV because we didn't have a TV. But yes, the green often would go out. Thing is about Metal Gear Solid, I don't know if you're familiar with the color palette of that game, but
Is it a little green?
It's very green.
It's very green. So all I could see was purple exclamation marks and muzzle flashes, and when that's all
not a
you can
good combo.
see,
That's in fact the worst combo that could exist.
when that's all you can see, it's not very conducive to getting far in that game. So
that should be the name of your memoir. Purple exclamation parts and muzzle flashes.
But because of that, I didn't make it through Metal Gear Solid 1. So I played Metal Gear Solid 2. And that game is ahead of its time as well for a couple reasons. Oh, maybe we should switch over to the gameplay in the background.
I blame Splice.
All right. But not only is the whole stealth mechanics, which, yes, the original Metal Gears kind of had it because he thought of making this cool action game and the hardware couldn't handle it. So he's like, oh, well, maybe I just want to make it so to keep few people on the screen, you're trying not to be detected. And that's kind of how he did it. And that was the original Metal Gear. And then Metal Gear Solid kind of took things to a whole new level on the PlayStation 1. And I did watch a friend play a lot of it. But Metal Gear Solid 2 was the first one that I bought and was able to play through myself. And it was cool because you could do a pacifist run, you could I don't think in the first one you could like steal the dog tags. Like you could
No,
sneak
that was
up.
introduced in the second one.
And like the fact that there was a new game plus that would unlock stuff, the more people you were able to get their dog tags. So you get a dog tag if you're able to sneak up behind them and, you know, shove your gun in their back and make them scared and drop their dog tag.
Yeah,
And
to make them scared, you either could point the gun at their head or their crotch.
yeah, their head or their crotch, but some were like tough guys, and so you had to like shoot their hand once without alerting anyone else. So you had to deal some damage to them, so then they'd be afraid. But yeah, you had to point the gun at the head or their crotch, and then they'd drop their dog tag. And so, I don't know, the fact that made it a challenge to not just get past every area, but find a way to take down every single enemy in a very specific way. It was kind of cool to give replayability on how well you can master this game, because this is one of the few games that I think has done a New Game Plus as well as Chrono Trigger. Because one, once you know what you're doing, it's not super long. Two, it gave you interesting things to try out to get new stuff. And I don't know, I thought it was a bit ahead of its time, especially kind of like in the case of Deus Ex. The story of this game is one that, when it came out, I thought it was completely bonkers. You know, like, oh, the story's about, you know, like the first one was about, Metal Gear Solid was about, you know, nuclear weapons with the Metal Gear Rex, right? Whereas in this one, it's like, you think it's about the nuclear weapons from the first game making a comeback, and then at the end, they're like, oh, actually, no, it's not about nuclear weapons at all. It's about the internet and information warfare and having this system that's able to control the flow of information on the internet so that it can control what people think. And when it came out, I'm like, that's totally crazy. That's like someone having that much control of the internet. That's totally crazy. Like, it was just, man, Kojima, you and your crazy ideas. And then we get to today, and it's like, wow, that's actually something people talk about a lot. That game was really ahead of its time. So I find that fascinating.
Yeah,
Well,
this
plus-
game messed with my head.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Don't
just,
think I played 2. I played 1. I didn't play. I don't think I played 2.
2 is it really is just a very good game. It's one of it
It's
might be
great.
my favorite of the series.
I
just
think it's my favorite.
It was one of those, like, you know, like, to tell you the truth, like, I only owned, like, actually, like, physically owned original NES cartridges, like, maybe 20 total, like, throughout the entirety of it. Because so I had to be very selective about what I asked for and what I got for myself, because I just, you know, like, everything else was a rental. And so it's one of those, and and it might have also been in part that, again, you know, I got Metal Gear Solid as a rental, and I wasn't very good at it, and, you know, I didn't really get enough time to, like, really get into it, and so, like, precious allowance dollars, gotta go to a game that I'm a little bit getting a little bit more out of.
But yeah, also this game was all about, Kojima was just trying to mess with players' heads in a lot of ways, and in some respects, it got a lot of hate when it first came out, because Kojima purposely designed it to, like, make the expectations of gamers take it and just kind of throw it out the window, you know? Because, like, a lot of people hate that, oh, you start playing as Snake, but then you switch to Raiden partway through.
The whole bait and switch, yeah.
The bait and switch of that. And it's kind of the whole, like, a lot of this game's design was about taking the expectations people had from the first game and how can he just turn it on its head. You know, with swapping out the playable character, it's not about nuclear power, it's about information control of the internet. Just so many times that, you know, you think you know what's going on and everything's parallel to the first game, and then he just pulls the rug out from underneath you. Kojima had a lot of fun with this game, it earned him a lot of hatred at the time, but I think he's still loved for it, in retrospect, now that there's been some time for people to cool down on it.
No, this was the first game I played where it felt like I was playing a movie. Like the opening cinematic was like it felt like the beginning of like a Mission Impossible type film.
And Mission Impossible is like my favorite movie as a kid. So like I loved this game
like
so much.
It had the soundtrack, and also this is the first game I remember thinking, wow, their lips are actually syncing up to what they're saying. Which again blew my mind.
Especially with David Hayter. Holy cow.
Oh, he did such a good job.
Such a good job.
And then Konami held Kojima hostage. And, Metal Gear Solid became real. And then he went off and did his own company with Guillermo del Toro and Norman Reedus, and everyone was confused.
Very, very confused.
Like, I don't get it at all. Like, like, I'm sure Kojima, like, side tangent for a second. I'm sure Kojima, like, is an artist, and I just don't get what goes on in his head, and that's me saying this.
Oh yeah, he is one of the first like game/movie directors where I remember thinking, this guy is brilliant, and I would never want to live in his head.
No, absolutely not.
Him and Christopher Nolan were the first two that I remember thinking that.
Yeah. But I mean, like, as a testament to him, like, he made a iconic franchise that then Konami has run into the ground, and they're not really sure how they're going to proceed with it after. Like, they've made a mobile game that was kind of a zombie shooter that didn't do very well.
That's because they shouldn't proceed with it. Just let a good game or a short series be that. It doesn't need to be an eternal franchise.
No, it doesn't. Like, let it go away until you guys eventually mend fences, in Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money.
Oh gosh.
Which, by the way, for those of you that don't know, they're in pre-production for Spaceballs 2.
Yeah, it's
Are they calling it The Search for More Money?
I hope so, because I mean that's the joke. And I think Mel Brooks also wants to do one more before, like, he shuffles off this mortal coil, and
he doesn't have long to go, I don't think.
I mean, like, he's outlived everyone, hasn't he? Though all of his friends, like, he's still going.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of like the modern day George Burns.
Yeah. George Burns was like, what, 104-ish?
I think he was 100 or 101.
I thought he got further. I thought he got further into the epic levels, but that's just me.
He was 100.
No.
1896 to 1996.
Can you imagine, though, like, living 100 years?
Yeah.
I mean, like, maybe if I'm a cyborg.
Anyway, we're on a tangent now. So
I mean, we are on a tangent, and I don't want to get too far into the fact that I've already measured Splice's head so that I can make sure that he is a robot too in the future. But ominous.
I'm more concerned that for you to do that, you probably had to be in my house at some point, and now I
outsourced that thing, man. Like, minions for hire, and minions are us. Like, you just you set up an account, you get a little credit card thing going in there. You can outsource your minion work for a third of the cost.
Yeah, but then you're dealing with little crazy yellow guys.
I mean, like, not those minions. Like, those minions, that's Minions TM copyright registered, whatever. Like, this is Minions. Like, this has been around forever, like, since the 80s. Where do you think they get? Where do you think, like, all of the vaguely international bad guys get their minions from? Like, it's just like a superstore. Like, it's like Costco for, like, expendable workforce.
Got it.
Did we lose you, Splice?
Splice, you
just-
there? Is Splice still on the call?
I hope he is.
He's on the
'Cause
call,
he's
but
in-
he
is
Did he?
are we missing Splice?
What do
I'm
what do we do? Okay.
Should we just start working on shoutouts or?
no, I don't think we should go to shoutouts without
Okay.
him here. Because
Why don't you?
what else do we have? Are there any games that we haven't gotten to on our?
No, I
on
think
our
that was
list?
supposed to be the last one. And,
Right.
Nope,
Lizzie
that-
mentioned Earthbound.
Earthbound. Okay, yeah.
My goodness.
Okay, why Earthbound?
Okay, because it's one of those games that's beloved to such a huge degree now. But do you remember when it came out?
Oh, it bombed.
It
hard.
totally bombed. I mean, there were reviews saying, "Oh, it's like playing a game of Bobby's World, that old kids cartoon."
That's just
Oh
because
my
the kid
God,
looked
Bobby's
like Bobby.
World.
It's like, whoa, dude. It's like they bagged on the art style, they bagged on like the setting, but like it's now one of the most beloved games of all time. So
Yeah.
I still have not been able to fully get into it.
I mean, me neither. But like, I know it's like.
it's got so much charm. I mean, it's an RPG that takes place in like a modern setting in Eagle Land, you know. So, you know, Shigesato Itoi was very much going for America.
1950s
Eagle Land.
America, most specifically.
Hey,
Hey,
Splice is
there's
back.
a splice.
Hey, we have a splice. But like, I mean, yes, you could argue that, you know, technically this is the second game in the series, so, you know, the first one would be there, but I think the fact that the amount of love it has now compared to back then shows it must have been ahead of its time because of just how that, I don't know, it was a great, like, in RPG, at this point, you think of RPG, you think of a fantasy setting, some cases a sci-fi setting.
Oh, yeah.
But to have like a contemporary setting where, you know, you're fighting, you know, gangsters and, I mean, heck yeah, there's even a boss fight of, you know, fighting the, you know, corrupt police force and just the way the story, like, I don't know, just the charm of having a contemporary setting with kids and making it actually kind of make sense. I don't know. It was really well done and way ahead of its time because, yeah, it was panned, it was hated. I was one of the few people who was excited when it came out and bought it.
Well,
And,
it's definitely held up over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get this all wrapped up. So, games. Some of them are ahead of their time and they're awesome. Lunastar, do you have anything you'd like to promote?
Yes, I'll promote Lizzie's stream, especially since she's the one who recommended I talk about Earthbound in the first place. But though she's talking about Pokemon, which was Pokemon ahead of its time? I don't know.
No.
No. Okay.
No. Was it genre defining?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
I'm not saying that we have to go into a whole tangent about it, but
Yeah.
like, you know.
I mean, think about it. When Pokemon came out, I was interested as an RPG. People don't even consider it an RPG anymore because it's more, you know, monster collector now. Like it's its own kind of separate subgenre of RPG now. So, but yeah, but she collects shinies. She goes hunting with some good chill vibes. So,
Chill Lizzie vibes.
yep,
Kami
Lizzie
Zite.
Petrichor at Twitch.
Hey everyone, it's me, your old friend Kami Zite. And as I've been promoting my partner, Karina J, she is in a contest right now that is going to be ending in a couple of weeks. She is writing a story called Entangled Enemies over on Tapas. There is a link in the self-promotion portion of the Splice stream. And as we've just recently found out, even if you are somebody who has subscribed and given likes, apparently, like, you can read it every day, and that counts towards her. So scroll through it a little. You scroll through it. Give her a comment. Give her a like. Give her a sub. If you're already doing it, just scroll through it again. Why don't you? Just get her those views, because that gets her ever closer to that cash prize of $10,000. As long as she makes the top 50, I think it is, something like that. But help your old boy Kami out by helping his partner Karina J out, and read some stuff and check out some other stuff on Stapis. But after you read her stuff, please.
All right, Baggins.
I will promote the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. If you're a fan of Brandon Sanderson, Splice and I and another friend of ours named Amy, we do a show every other Monday night starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And we talk about Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series of novels and such. Right now we are in major spoiler territory, but you can go back. We've got a huge backlog that you can go check out because right now we're talking about a book that hasn't come out yet. It'll be out in December. But yeah, things are definitely happening in that book. So we are getting excited.
Yes, they
we're
are.
enjoying our conversations. And when I say things are happening, I mean capital T things and capital H happening. Things are happening. But yeah, so you should check that out. That's at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies, or you can check us out on pretty much any podcast service. You should definitely check it out.
Indeed. And when I'm not falling asleep on my own podcast because I have been waking up at 4:30 to get to work, it's a thing. Anyway, I can also be found on twitch.tv/SplashStream, where we have been diving into the glory that is XCOM 2. So you should definitely come join us.
Yep. Well, guys, I think we overleveled.